Hello again. One of the things which fascinates me is the very different world inhabited by those who spend time on Twitter and YouTube and so on, and those who rely only upon the mainstream media to find out what's going on. That is to say, they watch the BBC News and perhaps read a newspaper. I obviously spend a lot of my time on the internet. I generally look to Twitter if I want to know about something ahead of time from its appearance in the mainstream news. The reason is, of course, that on Twitter you will see people reporting in real time. That is to say, telling us about what they have seen that very minute. There are both advantages and disadvantages in monitoring the news in this way. If something is going down that very minute in Ukraine, say, then dozens of people actually on the ground there will be tweeting about what they see and even uploading clips of film taken on their mobiles. It takes hours for all this to filter through to the news channels, so if you want to keep ahead of things, Twitter is a really good place to go. The great disadvantage, of course, is that people also tell many lies and spread false stories on Twitter. So it was that most Twitter users knew that Hugh Edwards was the BBC presenter under investigation long before his name was printed in the newspapers. On the other hand, for a couple of days, everybody on Twitter was spreading the news that the presenter in question was actually Jeremy Vine, which was completely false. You have to be really careful and look at lots of tweets and see who is making those tweets and then kind of take an average from them. All this is by way of introduction to the fact that there is feverish speculation at the moment, both on Twitter and in many other internet sites, about Oprah Winfrey. Essentially, the claim is that she is involved in the trafficking and abuse of children and has been for years. Brazilian psychic to whom she was close has been sent to prison for a lot of rapes, and it is alleged that she was mixed up with Jeffrey Epstein and so on. Then too, there's a girls' school in South Africa with which she's heavily involved. There are currently a lot of stories alleging that girls there have gone missing in mysterious circumstances. During the COVID business 3 years ago, a rumour was doing the rounds on Twitter that Winfrey's home had been raided and she had been arrested for trafficking children. I need hardly say that I have no idea at all how much, if any, of this is true, or has any kind of foundation at all in reality. After all, there are plenty of stories about the British royal family being shape-shifting lizards who drink blood doing the rounds on the internet as well. What interests me, though, is the way in which the whole business with Oprah Winfrey is such a big thing on the internet and absolutely never mentioned in newspapers or on television. One good explanation for this is that newspapers are cautious about being sued for defamation and so try to avoid libeling a very rich and influential woman. Quite understandable. The reason given on the internet, though, is somewhat different and is tied in with the notion that there are a number of wide-ranging conspiracies which are concerned with paedophilia in high places. Oprah Winfrey is portrayed as being a bit like Ghislaine Maxwell, in that she procures young girls to order, but also has the protection of very powerful people who prevent news of her activities appearing in the newspapers. This then exemplifies the difference between ordinary people and those who spend a lot of time on the internet. Most people in this country haven't heard a whisper of the business, and yet, for a very large number of people on the internet, Winfrey's involvement in a terrible scandal is now taken for granted. I've no idea of the truth of the matter, but it is curious to see this sharp division between people who learn about the world from newspapers and television and those who are always looking at Twitter and YouTube. The difference in perspective is quite astonishing.